a lone wanderer, traveling from place to place, assisting folk in need of dealing with creatures not entirely of this world. His skin is pale, his hair white, his eyes quite different from the rest. The name, of course, starts with a G, but while this may sound familiar, I'm not talking about Geralt. Instead, I'm describing Ginko, a mushi master, or a mushishi. While handling monsters is how Geralt earns a living as a professional witcher, Ginko's preoccupation deals with mushi, creatures native to a land of perpetual darkness that have found a way to traverse or even inhabit the world of humans. Mushi can vary in shapes and sizes, ranging from species smaller than raindrops all the way to gargantuan forms as big as mountains. Mushi's interactions with people, even though they are invisible to most, often cause unexpected consequences. These are often curse-like, for example dreams and nightmares manifesting in real life, growing horns out of one's forehead, and extremities being paralyzed and different in color and texture. Then there are situations where mushi can endow someone with special powers, like the ability to control wind, the ability to tame other beings, or telepathy. However, abusing these abilities can bring about grave consequences and drastically alter the lives of people involved. And the aforementioned are situations where a mushishi, in this case Ginko, comes in play. He is not the only one of his profession, as we meet a few of his colleagues throughout this series, but he seems to be quite different from the rest. Other mushi masters don't seem to shy away from destroying mushi, a course of action Ginko tries his best to avoid. He acknowledges that mushi just want to live, and are going through challenging times much like humans who struggle to survive in an age where resources are scarce, and every grain of rice counts toward living through the next winter. Being acutely aware of this, Ginko's solution mostly includes severing the link between humans and mushi, healing the ailments mushi cause, or simply driving them away, rather than outright killing them. This is reminiscent of Geralt, although he is much more likely to find himself in a situation where any monster around will most likely end up skewered on the pointy tip of his silver sword. He does show compassion towards monsters, and does not kill arbitrarily.
Shouldn't torment the beast. How would you like to be dumped in an arena, blindfolded with a string of bells dangling from your ass?
In general, Geralt sticks to the principle of not slaying monsters who are not a threat to humans, and to go even further, he is even known to befriend some of them. Now, having mentioned the Witcher's silver sword, Geralt's tools also include a steel sword, potions, blade oils, bombs, signs and others, though he carries his most essential ones, the two swords, on his back for the purpose of convenience. Ginko also carries his tools on his back, although swords are not part of his toolkit. He basically goes around with a wooden backpack that looks like a cupboard, filled with medicine and potions, tools for handling mushi, mushi-related trinkets and similar items. He doesn't like nosy friends snooping around and going through his stuff, but he does sometimes sell his things to get a bit of money. And this is one more thing that differentiates Ginko and Geralt. Ginko usually does not ask for much, often even refusing to take anything as payment for his deeds. His view of material wealth seems to be quite different from the one of witchers, who usually will not bother dealing with monsters if they aren't promised to receive adequate compensation.
Master Witchers, would you be of a mind to kill the griffin?
If someone will pay us, won't say no.
Instead, it seems the wandering mushishi depends on the kindness of others in his moments of need, often asking villagers to take him in, offering his services in return. He lives a simple lifestyle, traveling around Japan, taking in the beautiful natural and rural landscapes, and being content with this way of life, knowing he will likely never settle, as he inadvertently attracts mushi if he sticks around in one place too much. In addition, his left eye, often covered by his white hair, hides a persistent reminder of a possibility of a much darker fate. So with the appreciation of every given moment, he treads onward in a calm and measured manner, rarely showing signs of being disturbed or angered, readily exploring and dealing with many mysterious occurrences the interactions between humans and mushi present. His character is much like Geralt's. He is studious, cool-headed and professional in his line of work, calm and balanced, and rarely, if ever, showing strong bouts of emotion. However, Ginko's persona seems to be a result of his past experiences, his environment, and the culture he lives in, and does not stem from an artificially induced trial of grasses that witchers go through, giving them exceptional abilities, but also taking away their more human characteristics, like emotions. It is said that the trials kill a young to be witcher, and when they are reborn, they become something entirely different. Similarly enough, if you're destined to become a mushishi but are unable to see mushi, you might endure a very similar fate. One mushishi clan creates their members by exposing them to sensory deprivation first, then imbibing them with an artificially created mushi which turns them into soulless human husks with one overarching purpose: guarding humanity from the most dangerous of all mushi. Have in mind that the majority of mushishi do not endure these gruesome trials, unlike witchers, where these procedures are usually an unavoidable requirement. Now, this bioengineering of sorts translates quite differently to the world of Ginko when compared to the one of Geralt. It is one of the reasons why other humans shun witchers and call upon them only in cases of no alternatives. Thus, witchers mainly stick to the company of their own ranks, not forging any long-lasting relationships with humans, in exception of Geralt, who often has intimate dealings with a mage or two among the rest. Mushishi, on the other hand, are often well received by human communities, who highly value their services and deem them wise and knowledgeable, with villages even having mushi masters as permanent residents. These villages, or rural areas portrayed in the Mushishi series, while sometimes being a target of natural disasters, serve to depict a quaint, rustic, close-to-nature atmosphere that envelops the viewer in a feeling of comfortable coziness. The same cannot be said for most landscapes The Witcher goes through, in exception of Toussaint, as some areas come with gruesome reminders of bloody battles, serving as a constant memento of greedy leaders vying for power, never actually allowing their people the luxury to emotionally settle in. Thus, people suffering is a staple in the world of The Witcher, but the same can be said for the world of Mushishi as well, the difference being in the way it is portrayed. While pain and suffering is accentuated in areas like White Orchard, with the sights of a war-ridden land, with the tense quarrels between folk of different backgrounds, with the uneasy sight of hanging bodies around the path, the darker feelings become even more prevalent as you, controlling the main protagonist, tread these lands in search of quests that often pull you into this world even further as you get personally involved in others' misfortune. This gets even more exacerbated with the exquisitely detailed writing of the characters of the main questline as you enter their gloomy world deeper and deeper, inevitably sucking you in and ensuring you're here to experience it all in its full breadth. On the other hand, Ginko's world of rural Japan tells the stories of daily hardships in quite a different manner. As our Mushishi travels from village to village, he encounters pain, both physical and mental. He sees death, disease and worry for one's own survival embedded deep in the fabric of human life, but with a much different overall stance. On the visual level, the sights of suffering are much less grotesque than those in The Witcher, but no matter how serious they are, they come with a feeling of acknowledgement and acceptance. In basically every episode, the curiosity for solving a presented mystery and the calm, diligent work Ginko does to alleviate any possible harm takes the forefront, the emphasis being on resolving an issue in due time rather than hyperbolizing the feelings of angst in face of horrific human destinies. As a result, coupled with often minimally active shots of landscapes closely reminiscent of lifelike oil-on-canvas renditions of nature in all its restoring calmness, the perception of difficulties is transformed. Instead of being almost unbearable, through Ginko's attentive gaze, the sight of potential misery becomes serene, present without any additional weight our emotions such as fear, anger or anxiety may grant it. And instead of violently fighting it, the viewer is encouraged to embrace it by observing it through Ginko's actions. Thus, instead of encouraging destructive emotions, the suffering in Mushishi is transformed into mindfulness, and each episode becomes almost like a 20-minute guided meditation session. And Ginko's minimal and fragmented backstory further enables us, the viewers, to experience each episode in just this manner, as a meditative practice. While players directly control Geralt's actions easily identify themselves with the character, this is much more difficult to achieve with Mushishi. And I find no fault in this, as this act enables the viewers to still remain themselves, conscious of their role as an observer, staying attentive of every moment that passes, being gifted with a present of undisturbed awareness.